Cowboy Bebop. Adaptations are difficult to get right, I think. You really gotta go into an adaptation knowing that it's not going to be as good as its original work. So Netflix released a live-action Cowboy Bebop recently. Overall, I actually kind of like it. It's not terrible. That bar is extremely low, though, so you gotta remember that. I don't know if any of you have seen a lot of anime adaptations. I've seen a few, and just about every single one that I've seen, at least, I'm sure there are good ones out there, but all the ones that I've seen are terrible. Overall, it's still better than most live-action anime adaptations. I mean, remember this, or this, or this, frickin' this. I hate this. This was awful. Don't ever watch this, ever. This should be hated out of existence. Don't ever see this. Like, I feel like with the Cowboy Bebop live action, I feel like they tried to do something, and in a lot of ways they succeeded, actually. I'm gonna talk about I'll talk about the things I do like first, and then I'll talk about the things I don't like. Things I do like. I really enjoyed the first few episodes for the most part. The strongest thing in this show, I really enjoyed the three main adult characters. I think they got them pretty much right, actually, and that's difficult to do. Apparently. They tweaked them a little. There's a couple times where I noticed they acted a little out of character, but it didn't really bother me that much. The only time it really bothered me was when Jet would hug someone. Like, I think Jet hugs Spike at one point, and I'm like, nah, that wouldn't happen. And then Faye hugs Jet at one point, which I thought was weird. In the anime, they're very closed off, you know? It doesn't really make sense for them to go hugging each other. I liked how they kept the same music. I know they went in and they like redid it, but it was all the same songs. I remember listening to it and being like, oh yeah, that's the song from that episode, that's the song from that episode. I wasn't crazy about Jet's daughter subplot. Like, that whole thing just felt very cliche. It was fine. Like, I was okay after a while. I was like, okay, this is fine, this isn't that big of a deal. That recital scene was really funny, so I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's cliche, but I'm gonna let it go. It got a little annoying at the end, but just because it wove into like the plot. But other than that, I thought it was fine, really. I like the stuff that they did with Faye. They added some new stuff with her. It kind of makes sense to me that they have her kind of exploring her sexuality a bit. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, for Faye. She didn't do that in the anime, but I think that actually makes a lot of sense for her because she had been in cryosleep for like 100 years. And she doesn't like know who she is. She's trying to figure out who she is. So to me, that makes a little bit of sense. I thought Spike was pretty accurate. The actor did a great job portraying him. I know he's a little older, but I thought he was fine. The only thing I thought was a little odd was that in the anime, he's very much like torn between his past and his present, and that's very evident throughout the show. And it's almost like he's running from his past in a way. Whereas in the live action, it's almost as if in the first few episodes, he's like going back to it. And I thought that was a little weird. They don't really talk about his eye, you know, his fake eye that's always looking into the past, and then his other eye is in the present. That's a thing that's very prevalent throughout the anime that they don't really go into in the show, but they still could in the next season. So this right here is the DVD box set of Cowboy Bebop, the anime. I've had this since high school, which for me was a long time ago. 26 episodes, and they're all fantastic, except for maybe one. I could think of one I didn't really like. But other than that, they're all great. See, this, children, is called a DVD. Do you know what a DVD is? Did you say DVD, children? Yeah, this show just made me want to rewatch the anime the whole time. The other thing I liked about the live action was the style. I thought they pretty, accurately portrayed kind of the style of it a little bit. Like adding in just like the goofy like kung fu here and there, and the, like I said, the music and the colors for sure. And I'm struggling to say the word tone because yeah, like they got kind of the lighthearted tone in there, sure, or like the jazzy tone, but they didn't really stick the melancholy tone that the anime sometimes had. Actually, I say sometimes, but often, honestly, they often had a lot of melancholy episodes and some kind of serious, more dramatic moments. So those are the things I liked. The live action show is very much lighthearted fun. It depends on who you ask. Like, that's a good thing, but at the same time, that's kind of a bad thing. To me, I feel like they tried really hard to cater to like a larger audience. Maybe this is just my complete opinion. Like maybe this is just a crazy observation, but it looks like they tried to please everybody. You know, like they tried to please the anime. The people who love the anime, but they also tried to reach a broader audience by making it more lighthearted and fun and making more things kind of make sense. But I think that kind of hurt it a little bit because the way they tried to make things make sense, to me, doesn't make any sense, you know?
They're trying to please everybody, but ironically, I've ended up pleasing nobody.
Again, I enjoyed it, but it's nowhere near as good as the anime. And, you know, you should really go into these kind of things knowing that, or kind of expecting that, yeah, maybe this will be okay, but just know that it's not going to be anything like its original adaptation. I mean, you know, as I try to envision it like it's another dimension or another universe, you know, like the whole Star Trek thing.
An alternate reality.
Precisely.
That's how I was able to watch Game of Thrones without without complaining too much about the changes from the book to the show. Even though that ending was pretty disappointing, the show until the ending is still pretty enjoyable, even though they, you know, somewhere in season 5, they kind of go off and do their own thing. I can watch the show and think to myself, well, it happened in the book differently, but the way I distinguish the two is I kind of have it in my head that, like, this is another timeline, another universe. This is how things could have happened, but it's not really how they happened, you know? So when I watch Cowboy Bebop, I kind of do the same thing. I kind of just think, you know, I look at it and I just enjoy what's going on, and I'm like, okay, you know, that's not really what happened, but I'm not getting mad at it, you know, I don't care. Like, I take solace knowing that that's not what really happened, you know? And it's okay to still, like, be along for the ride. To me, it makes it more relaxing to not have to carry that weight. Oh man, didn't take long to make that joke. There's just little decisions they made in the live action that I think kind of hurt it a little bit, and they don't really enhance the story. So it's not, to me, it's not so much that, like, oh, they changed it from the anime. To me, it's like, if it works, then I'm okay with it, you know? Like, for instance, like I was saying earlier, some of the stuff with the lead 3 characters, they tweaked the characters a little bit, but it works, so I'm okay with it. You know, I don't really love the whole Jet's daughter thing because I think it's cliche, but it's fine, you know, because it doesn't really hurt anything. It just more kind of adds to everything. Personally, I think it would have been better to have Jet as just a guy, you know. Like, he doesn't have to be a dad. He doesn't have to have all these other problems. He doesn't have to be feuding with his ex-wife or his ex-partner or this other person, you know. Stepdad, I guess. Like, his daughter's stepdad is his ex-wife's husband, you know. Like, he doesn't have to be feuding with all these people. Like, I don't know. I think they could have given him some more depth that didn't have to be so cliche, but anyway. So let me talk about some of the things I didn't like. The biggest problem in the Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop is, hands down, Ein. No, just kidding. Ein's fine. Ein's absolutely fine. It's not Ein. It's Vicious is the biggest problem. Vicious is a huge problem. I'm just confused as to why they did some of this stuff. Like, he just has this inferiority complex, you know, and he's such like a whiny little thing. He reminds me of Viserys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, and he kind of looks like him too because of that white hair, but like in personality sort of, because he has this like sense of entitlement and he has this huge inferiority complex, and it's odd that a character named Vicious would act like that, you know. It's odd to me. Like, why would you call him vicious? Why would you call someone like that vicious? How did he earn that name actually? Like, how? Like, Fearless probably earned his name Fearless because he was probably fearless in some instances or in some areas, maybe in his job. Like, I'm sure he earned that title in some way. But how is Vicious vicious? Other than he's just kind of a spoiled little man-child. Like, he's just a spoiled little man-child. It's really sad if you're a fan of the anime, because right after I finished the 10th episode, I immediately watched Ballad of Fallen Angels, which is the 5th episode of the anime. And it's one of the best episodes in any anime ever, period. I stand by that. Fight me. Like, I stand by that. Vicious's introduction in the anime is about several seconds long. I want to say 5 to 10 seconds. And he just kind of walks in, and Mao is pleading with him and saying, like, the syndicate can't survive if we keep killing each other, like, that kind of stuff. And Vicious doesn't say a word. He just walks in, and his men just cut his throat, you know, Mao's throat, not his throat. As he's walking away, Mao says, if Spike were here, you never would have done this. And there's a close-up of like the bottom half of his face, you know, that anime thing that they do. And he just smiles. It's perfect. It's an amazing introduction to this character, who's probably one of the best anime villains in anime history. In the anime, he's a force to be reckoned with, but in the live action, people talk down to him. They talk real down to him. Like, I remember there are certain moments when people are talking to him, and I'm like, no one would ever talk to Vicious this way. Like, not the Vicious I remember, at least. By the way, spoilers. I'm really sorry. I really should have said this earlier. Spoilers for this whole video. But like later, you know, he goes against the elders and he kills them or whatever. That does happen in the anime. It's just less like over dramatic. Vicious is definitely the number one thing I think they need to change. They turn him into like this cartoony Disney villain. Like at the end of, I think it's episode 2 or 3, where Spike shoots his bulletproof glass, but like part of the glass, like, you know, chips off and like hits his cheek. And then it ends with him going, fearless. I laughed. I was like, are you going for a laugh here? Because that's pretty silly. There are a couple things I would suggest that they change, but the most important thing, in my opinion, is Vicious. All these other little things are a little annoying, but like it's not a big deal. They're really not a big deal. To me, the biggest deal is Vicious. Like, he really needs to change. I don't know if he can at this point, because we've seen too much and he's done too much and he's like already a certain way. But maybe they can, like, you know, if you've seen the end of the show, then you know what happens. So like maybe at the end, like maybe that whole experience kind of makes him snap, and then he turns into the Vicious that we know, who is very stoic, by the way. Vicious is always very stoic. He rarely says a word, and when he does, it's always very poetic and creepy. I think one way they could have done Vicious a little better is don't put him in situations where he can be vulnerable. And if you do, you gotta let him kind of shine in that area, so that he had like wild, crazy eyes, which happened a couple times in the anime, but it was always when like he was fighting somebody or like Spike shot him or something. Like, he only had those crazy eyes when he was like in the heat of battle. He didn't just have them randomly like he does in the live action show. No offense to the actor. Again, no offense to any of the actors. I actually think the casting for the most part is pretty great. He's just not really intimidating. And that's kind of odd that they would look at this character, they would look at the anime, and they would get some characters right, and then they would look at Vicious and say, let's make him not intimidating. That's just odd to me. Like, why would you not make him intimidating? I don't know. That's kind of odd. That was just I just thought that was a weird choice, because it definitely was a choice. Like, there's no way they did that on accident. And to make matters worse, they made it so that he got to where he was not through his own merit, but through nepotism. Like, they reveal, spoilers, they reveal that like later one of his elders is his dad. And it's like, so it's nepotism? And I'm like, so Vicious, and that's when I was like, okay, Vicious is nothing. Like, Vicious is nowhere near what Vicious is supposed to be. And it was just so odd. I've been talking so long that the sun is going down. I might have to turn on some lights. Hang on. All right, that's a little better. I think one of the ways they could make Vicious a little more intimidating is maybe give him like the Tommy Shelby eyes, you know, just like deadpanned, like just like shark eyes, you know, just deadpan, like you don't know what this guy's gonna do. Instead, they just make him super insecure, and he's like, I'm a man, no, you better treat me right, and nobody does. Like, everybody just like treats him like a brat. I think it'd be cool if like in the next season he just kind of, you know, snaps because of everything that happens in the first season. He just snaps, and then he actually becomes like the Vicious that we know. I think that'd be cool, you know. That'd be a good way to kind of salvage that whole thing. And then my other big gripe is Julia. I think the impulse to add more depth to Julia's character, I think that's a good impulse. I actually think that that's the only thing that could have made the anime better. Like the only thing that could have made this better, because this is a masterpiece, by the way. I consider this to be the best anime I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of anime. The only way that I can think of that would possibly make this even a little better would be, maybe go into Julia a little bit. Julia's only in like a couple episodes. We don't really know her very well in the anime. She just kind of shows up at the end, and we only really care about her because Spike cares about her. You know, it doesn't ruin it. It doesn't ruin it at all. It's fine. It's just, I would have liked to get to know Julia a little more before the end. The decision to give Julia more depth, I think that's a good decision. I just really don't like the way that they did it. The way they did it was, man, like why? like they made Julia marry Vicious, like their husband and wife, which is very weird. They weren't like that in the anime. And then, I mean, you know, if you saw the ending, then you know that she takes over the syndicate, which is also strange because she seems like somebody who the entire show she was trying to leave the syndicate. She didn't have any motivation or interest in being with the syndicate. So it makes me wonder, like, what would she actually do? What would she actually do or change? Like, why would she want that, first of all? And like, what would she actually do if she was in that state, that seat of power, I guess? Like, I'm just curious as to what her plan is, you know? I don't know how to fix that. I like the idea of expanding her character, but she just kind of snaps. She just pulls a Daenerys Targaryen and is just like, oh, I'm all of a sudden crazy. I'm gonna, and like the reason she got mad at Spike was because he didn't, that was so weird. Like she just showed up and she was like, wait, but you left me and you were out there. Why didn't you come back for me? You knew I was in this like bad relationship. And he was like, oh, I thought you chose that. And she's like, you believed him? And I'm like, well, what was he supposed to do? Like, I don't know. That was just a little weird. And then she immediately just snapped and then just shot him out of like rage. I don't know. It was weird. It was, to me, it did feel like the Game of Thrones thing where Dany just kind of snaps and all of a sudden she's crazy. It was just weird. I think we shouldn't get too mad at like an adaptation like this because it is far better than most anime adaptations by a long shot. That doesn't mean it doesn't have flaws. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need work, because it definitely does. But I think this is most enjoyed when you kind of, I don't want to say ignore the anime, but when you kind of like understand that this is a, you know, like I said earlier, this is kind of like a different dimension, a different like world. That's kind of how I distinguish it. You know, it's like it's a different world, it's a different dimension. This is kind of like a what if story, you know, if you will. The problem with that is I feel like they've taken a lot of the humanity out of it. There was a lot of heart and humanity to the anime that is not really quite present here. Like there's little moments where they're like, oh, let's try to get the feels, but it's very cliche and it's very surface level, and none of it is underneath the surface, which is where it all was in the anime. The way it's going now, I don't see how it can end the way that the anime ended. When the anime ended, we really felt something, and we felt the words, "You're gonna carry that weight." They made a lot of sense, at least to me. And if they did that ending with what we saw in the live action, it would not have the desired effect at all, I don't think. Because it's a very, you know, the ending of the anime is, if you haven't seen it, is very somber, extremely poetic, and I feel like it hits really well. And I don't really see it hitting well, that ending with this show. Like, is this just one of those things you should just recommend to other people? Or because I feel like there's two groups of people, you know, there's people who like just want to watch TV for the entertainment value and they don't really care about like this artsy stuff, right? They're like, I don't care if it's art, I just want to be entertained. And to those type of people, I think this show will probably definitely appeal more to them. But if you're someone that's looking for more meaning and more of like the art side of it, then the anime is more what you're looking for. Less is more. In the anime, there were so many moments where they could have gone crazy and they just kind of scaled back a little bit, and like it was a lot of the withholding of information that made things better. It was when Spike and Jet didn't talk about their feelings, you know. There was a moment in the live action where they did have a moment like that. I think it was episode 2 with the teddy bomber. I think it was that episode where Spike and Jet, like Jet's trying to get Spike to open up and Spike still is reluctant to open up. And that was to me the one of the most like genuine moments where it was similar. It was very similar to the anime and true to the characters. If they do more of that, then the show I think could improve. These characters are extremely closed off the entire time in the anime. I'm noticing that in just in media in general lately, everything is very literal, you know? Everything's very, not literal, everything's very like surface level, and everything is explained, and there's like a value in withholding information. If you have like a plot that's increasing, maybe don't explain everything, you know? There's a subtlety and ambiguity can be a really good thing. I think it can leave the audience with something to think about and something to work out in their heads. You know, the anime was very good about giving us 2 + 2 and not 4. You know, and this show is very like, no, we have to explain everything, and everybody's feelings have to be known. And in the anime, their feelings were very subtle. And they would only kind of let them out in these really human and small ways. Like when Ed leaves in the anime, I love the scene where Jet and Spike just eat their feelings. They don't even look at each other. They just eat. They have all these eggs because they got them from Ed's dad. They got all these eggs and they just eat their feelings away. They're clearly sad, but they just eat their feelings away and could not talk about it at all. I'm like, that is a very human thing to do. All these characters in these TV shows are always like voicing their opinions and feelings all the time, and there's not a whole lot of like subtlety and ambiguity when it comes to that. But really, that's where the humanity comes in. I think when they do that, when they just like allow their characters to like just to be passive aggressive or just like not say what they're thinking all the time or not say how they're feeling all the time. I really think there's a beauty in that. I think that would only increase the show. More communication without dialogue, if that makes sense. I feel like I've talked a lot about this show, so I'm going to stop. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have anything that I missed that you want to discuss about Cowboy Bebop, let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya.